Welcome to Talk on the Pod, the podcast where we delve into the remarkable journey of the Takim Foundation's community, who are showcasing the best of the Arab world and paving the way for a brighter future. I'm your host, Andrea. Please join me in welcoming Omar Itani, a Lebanese entrepreneur and social change advocate dedicated to sustainability. Omar is the founder and CEO of FabricAID, a social enterprise tackling textile waste by creating a circular economy for secondhand clothing. Through innovative redistribution, FabricAID has kept thousands of tons of fabric out of landfills while making quality clothing affordable for underserved communities. But the journey wasn't easy. From navigating Lebanon's economic crisis to shifting perceptions around secondhand fashion, Omar has built FabricAID into a model for sustainable business in a volatile region. His work has earned him numerous recognition, including the United Nations Young Champion of the Earth for West Asia and Takim Foundation's Young Entrepreneur Award. Throughout this episode, we'll delve into Omar's journey, his commitment to sustainability and environmental conservation, and the challenges of social entrepreneurship in the region. We'll also explore Omar's love for history, particularly in the Arab world, and how his deep connection to nature and Lebanon's villages add a unique dimension and perspective to his life and work. So without further ado, let's dive into this inspiring conversation with Omar Itani. Omar, welcome to Talk on the Pod.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you start by telling us a bit about, early life, what inspired your journey into entrepreneurship and how you co-founded with your first company, Visio, and waste management company while still in high school?
Akid, Ochi, thank you so much for this invitation and for allowing me to be on this podcast. I'm so excited for the episode to be out. It honestly started very organically. In schools, there's a program called Injaz. And basically, each school will create a company, each company will create a product or a service, and then those companies will compete with each other in Lebanon. And the winner of Lebanon competes with other winners in the Arab world. So it's a great opportunity for students at a very young age to create their own enterprises, to have a taste of the business world. For me, it was a wonderful opportunity. At the time, I was a terrible student. So a lot of those academic opportunities that are correlated to your grades weren't really an option for me to participate in. So Injaz just wasn't one of them. And we worked in the field of general waste sorting, collection, and then recycling in the area of the school. Yeah, it was, of course, like a student enterprise, but it did quite well. And we won the Lebanese competition.
Yeah.
And then we won third place in the Arab competition. And honestly, this was the best introduction to the entrepreneurial world. I fell in love. I felt that this is something I would love to do. And I felt two types of passion. One is building something from scratch, building an enterprise, seeing a startup growing, seeing the traction, the partnerships, and the general growth of the enterprise is definitely a journey that is, of course, super stressful,
Yeah.
overwhelming, but definitely very interesting. And at the same time, the passion of doing something that you believe has a value for the community, for the society, something that gives back, something that needs to exist, not creating stuff that will have marginal value.
And just for profit.
Exactly.
And you decided to venture into social enterprises. How did your journey from starting at such a young age to deciding to go full into it after graduating? Can you talk a bit about how that started and how did you pivot from Visio into FabricAID?
Sure. At the time back in school, so when we started Visio, we were still old school students. يعني, we didn't even go into university. And I personally wanted at the time to continue with Visio
Yeah.
and for it to become like a legit company because I really saw the potential at the time. My parents thought otherwise. They were like, look, you go to university and then you see what path in life you want to take.
Yeah.
I wasn't really keen on university since my academic output wasn't something that is motivating for me. but nonetheless, it made sense. Like you go to university, and in university, you can assess your choices in a much better way. So went to uni. I studied industrial engineering, and just before graduating, I was very much into volunteering, very much into community service, civil engagement, and the opportunity of FabricAID or starting a social enterprise just came quite organically. I remember this was early 2017, and I wanted to donate my clothes to the concierge of the building. A lot of Lebanese people till today do this. So you would prepare your stuff, you would iron them, you try to put them in a nice, presentable way. And I remember I was handing my stuff to the concierge. His name was Tariq. And I was like, just before leaving, a question that bumped into my mind. He was a bit of a chubby guy, and was even skinnier than today. So I just asked him, Tariq, how would you benefit from my clothes? And he was like, I don't really benefit from them. دهورن, which like means I get rid of them. And I was like, sure, you get rid of them. عم بكويهم. I've been trying to present them in the best way possible. And I realized that he really doesn't have a need for them because simply they don't fit him. So I felt maybe there's a better way to donate my clothes. I live in Corniche al-Mazra. Next to Corniche al-Mazra, there's an area called Hayy Tamlis. Till today, this area in central Beirut has what we call Hayy Tanaki, yani part of the street or part of the houses still have tanak, tin, as a roof instead of concrete. So this is the level of poverty in that neighborhood. Of course, the neighborhood is small, but still the poverty is very flagrant over there. And I was volunteering there for quite some time. So I had some contacts, and I started to go to that area and ask people what do they exactly need. So if you need a t-shirt, what color, what cut, what size, and try to match the things they want with the things I already have or the things I can possibly get from my university friends, from my colleagues, from my family. And that's how it started. It started purely from volunteering. The journey from starting as a volunteering initiative took time until it became actually an enterprise. For nearly 6 to 8 months, it was purely something that we do after work. I would go back to my house.
Yeah.
My friends and myself would sort the items, and started to become like quite big. A lot of people would call to donate their clothes, and a lot of people would call wanting like a specific item, wanting like this type of support. And it was like something that you do every day.
Yeah.
On the weekends, we would do the distribution. On the weekdays, we would do the sorting. And it was like a great bonding activity with friends. Until my mom felt that it was a bit too much. The sorting process started in my room, and then it was in the salon, بالentrée, and when it came to the living room, she was like,
Took
look,
over your life. Yeah.
you either get rid of the clothes or I'll get rid of you. And out of sheer fear of becoming homeless, I felt,
You need to do
مختار عن
something about
البارود,
it.
we can figure out a way to get to give the clothes to someone who is doing this at a more commercial level, at a more sophisticated level. And this was the actual surprise. This doesn't really exist in Lebanon. The vast majority of organizations that collect clothes, the vast majority of organizations do not collect clothes. And the ones that do collect, this is not their primary scope of focus. So they do it as a side activity. So the way the distribution happens is through basically a room, and people need to, they put all the clothes in a room, and people need to search on a pile of clothing, which I didn't feel that it's the best way to distribute clothes. Or they would distribute clothes as a food parcels. So everybody would need salt and sugar and vinegar and oil, but not everybody dresses in the same way. So people need to choose what they want to dress.
The sizing,
The color, the preference. And this is where I discovered that, okay, there's a problem, and that this problem is quite big. And a proper way to resolve it is through thinking like a startup. I didn't know what a social enterprise was at the time, but it was a learning process.
And you really blended this entrepreneurship world with the not-for-profit NGO for social benefits two worlds merging together. Do you feel like you needed to have some form of how to turn this into a business, how to monetize the process? How did that work?
For sure, like the level of knowledge at the time was so modest. I really had no idea how to build a financial model, what a social enterprise is,
Yeah.
what's the difference between a social enterprise, an NGO, and a for-profit company.
What is
Well,
a social enterprise?
a social enterprise is simply an organization that tries to solve a social or environmental problem using commercial means. Ideally, a social enterprise would grow and fund itself through the revenues it generates from solving the problem they are trying to solve. A normal company would generate profits without the need to basically solve a social or environmental issue. It can be the company that creates those mics, for example. A social enterprise, their core activity should be addressing a social or environmental need. While an NGO, they would solve a social and environmental need, but they don't need to generate any revenues. They get their fundraising through donations, grants, and etc. Um, this information was unavailable at the time, and the A, B, and C to create a company, I had very limited knowledge, and I was only 21 years old. So definitely being involved in accelerators, competitions, incubators, this was a pivotal. And I honestly learned at those incubators more than what I learned at my university.
And, within the social enterprises world, it might not have been a very popular thing to do back in the days. The trend tends to go down the traditional business setup road or just an NGO to solve those problems. But putting those two, combining the bridge between both of those venues to really enhance the ability to impact our environment, whether on a social level or an environment level. Can you speak a bit through, the challenges of treating it like a business and balancing profitability and raising funds and getting, people to stay on the team, but also at the same time while making sure that you're solving the problem and creating this impact?
So, creating a normal startup in Lebanon is a complicated and very challenging thing to do. Creating a social enterprise that is a startup is even a more complicated thing. If you're a startup, you would, one of the biggest and simplest issues to explain is basically fundraising for a startup. If you are a tech startup, the Anghamis, the Totters, the Basmans of the world, of Lebanon, would fundraise through getting venture capital funds, angel investors. Predominantly, this capital comes from outside of Lebanon. And if this company can scale outside of Lebanon, the chances of getting funding becomes substantially higher. An NGO would raise through grants and donations, as mentioned. The problem of a social enterprise is that you cannot raise through grants, especially at the time, or through donations, because you are registered as a limited liability company. You are registered in the same way any other company in the country is registered. So there's no mandate from a development agency or from an embassy to give you a grant. And if you approach traditional venture capital funds, angel investors, especially venture capital funds, they are not very familiar with the concept of double bottom line, profit and people, or triple bottom line, profit, people, and environment. Usually the solutions they tend to invest in are very tech-oriented solutions and not business model-oriented solutions. So you're just speaking a different language when you speak with those venture capital funds. And a slightly different language to when you are speaking to development agencies, because they would ask you questions like, what would you do with the profits? Why would you need to create, it's just a very different dynamic. And the infrastructure to support social enterprises, especially when it comes to fundraising, just simply didn't exist in 2017, 2018. That's one major challenge. Another challenge is the awareness within the Lebanese society on the concept of a social enterprise. I think, although we've passed through a lot in the last 7 years, and the awareness on social enterprises grew quite significantly, but still, I would bet more than 70% of the country has no idea what a social enterprise is. وبعدنا هلا شو انتم جمعيه
It's a business. It works like a business.
and
Yeah.
and the people like till today I know that people get confused and شو يعني ما فهمت
Yeah.
بتبيعوا تياب ولا انه تتبرعوا في شو بتعملوا. So it's still the concept of what a social enterprise is, and I know all the other social enterprises in Lebanon do face a lot of ignorance about the topic, and it's became part of their mandate. Similar to us, it's part of our mandate to expose and to spread awareness about what social enterprises is. So awareness is a second big issue. And the third one are the general, normal difficulties that you face as someone who's trying to build any type of commercial activities in Lebanon: the lack of stability, the huge issue of the banking sector, the lack of credit. Yeah, you know those problems quite well.
How does FabricAID work in terms of just the business model? From collecting, if a few people have noticed, there's some bins all over Beirut. I noticed one at a coffee shop the other day. How does the flow happen from donation all the way to outcome?
So we do basically four main things in the company. One is collection. We do have hundreds of clothing collection bins. This is a primary way of that allows us to collect much of the clothes that we have. We do also collect through partnerships with charities, mosques, churches. We do collect through partnerships with brands. We are the biggest collector in the region of secondhand clothing. This is one aspect of our work. 70% plus of the clothes that we collect, after it's sorted, cleaned, divided into more than 50 plus categories, it goes to our stores catered to extremely marginalized communities. Our stores in Lebanon and Jordan and very soon in Egypt are basically focused in areas in Lebanon such as Nab'a, Akkar, certain areas in Akkar, Bab al-Tabbani. So areas that are impoverished and are underprivileged. The aim of those stores is to allow people to get the clothes they want at prices that they can actually afford without feeling that somebody is doing charity for them. You go into our stores, everything is hanged, neatly displayed. There's price tags, fitting rooms, personalized advice. People have the chance to choose whatever they want at prices that they can actually afford. I'm نحكي the average price is around $1 per item.
Oh wow.
There's a shopping experience, and there's most importantly a dignified opportunity for people to get what they need. Around 70% of what we collect, as mentioned, is distributed through those stores. We have sold more than 1 million items to more than 200,000 people in Lebanon only through those stores. A small portion, around 2 to 3% of what we collect, goes into the third thing the company does. Well known in our circles as Second Base. It's basically a chain of vintage stores that we own and operate. The clothes that we receive that is a bit vintage, boho, African print, stuff that marginalized communities who tend to be conservative don't usually consume. Those type of items are sold at Second Base. And of course, higher prices to a different target audience to further sustain the organization. The remaining 25-27% of the clothes that we collect is basically overconsumed, damage. This is stuff that usually ends up in a landfill. We have a firm commitment that whatever clothes we collect, nothing ends up in a landfill. We take this cloth, we do an additional layers of sorting, classification for it, and it's basically upcycled into corporate merchandise. Deloitte, Majd Al-Fatim, Qatar Airlines, Olayan Group, AUB. There's a lot of corporations that we've worked with, predominantly outside of Lebanon, where we develop for them merchandise made fully from secondhand clothing.
Wow.
And this is what basically FabricAID does. In a nutshell, today we have more than 80 full-timers. We operate in Lebanon, Jordan. We have offices in that we are establishing and a big presence that we are establishing in Egypt and UAE. And we have more than 16 stores catering to hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Is there an inspiring story or experience or direct impact that you've witnessed from all the work that you've been doing with Fabricate on either end of the spectrum that really demonstrate the importance of building such an enterprise with a social cause and showcases the reason why you do this for the community?
Definitely. Honestly, the journey of creating a social enterprise, scalable
Yeah.
at the scale of Fabricate and the scale that we hope to achieve one day, is definitely a very, very complicated and challenging journey. And for me personally, and a lot of members of the team, also definitely some of our investors, they would have not participated in that endeavor. It's just too complicated if the only reason behind it was the commercial elements of it. Uh, the reason we give the effort that we give is because I can name like literally 100 encounters and stories that we've seen through the past 6-7 years that shows the impact of the work that we do. One of the stories that I know and that I always remember, and when things get tough on me personally, I remind myself of that story and remind myself why the
Why?
work we are doing is important and why it's worth the effort. I was once in our store in Tripoli, and it was right before Eid, similar time to now. And a gentleman came with his kids, and I remember he was like, روحوا اشتروا اللي بدكم اياه، أنا نقوا اللي بدكم اياه واشتروا. Uh, so he said that, and شو اسمه, they started like going from one rail to another, choosing their items. And the lady at the store introduced the guy to me, and she was like, he's part of the management team and one of the people who created this organization. And he was like, I would like to tell you something, that this is the only place in the country where I can tell my kids to go and buy whatever you want.
Wow.
And I felt that it's a way where we empowered a dad. It's a way where we empower. It would have been a very different experience if the dad felt that his kids are taking charity. There's no charity involved. It's a normal retail store, and he believes and he feels, and that's what is actually happening, that he can tell his kids to get whatever they want, and he can afford to give warmth and to satisfy the needs of his kids, which is evidently becoming more and more challenging to a big portion of the population. In Lebanon, the numbers of people finding extreme difficulty in buying the clothes that they need exceeds 2.5 million people. So he's just one of 2.5 million people that we are contributing and empowering and enabling them to afford what they actually need. This is one of the one of the stories, and I have so many others. But
It's a big moral boost too for them,
for sure,
to feel like they can live to a normal standard, and encourage them to maybe step it up and feel like it's not impossible to. Yeah. You've received numerous awards recognizing the trajectory of FabricAID and the work that you've done, which surely shows you that it's going the right way. And also recently with the Techim Foundation, received the Young Entrepreneurs Award. How would you say those awards being recognized for the work kind of help shape your vision for the future of FabricAID, and hopefully to inspire other ventures you might undertake or other people might be inspired to undertake as well?
We have thankfully received several awards through our journey, but I know all of those awards were not from Lebanon, were not from the region. So we had a Denis Piton Award from France, we did the JSVC from the United States, had an award from Oman, an award from Italy, an award from Barcelona. But to receive this recognition from an organization that has the reputation of Takrim in your home country, it just feels and hits very differently. And especially that in our year, the award ceremony was in Lebanon. So we had the opportunity to take the entire team. And honestly, this was one of the happiest days in my life, because I really felt, unlike all other awards, I can share it with everyone who actually deserves it. the team who
Yeah.
worked so hard. Uh, uh, every organization's had a couple of faces, but a lot of hands behind them. And this is definitely the case of FabricAID. And it was a great opportunity to share this achievement with everyone who contributed. So it was a boost to our morale, a boost to our credibility, uh, and definitely an opportunity for us to network, to get to know other people, for a lot of people to know what FabricAID is. The number of calls and messages that I personally received and several of our team members have received after that award are just too close to our hearts. And uh, such moments are also things that push you further and boost you during tough times.
Uh, More specifically, talking about Lebanon and our home country, how has your passion for reading and history, especially in regards to the history of the Arab world in our region, influenced your approach to want to stay here, to want to contribute to your home country, to want to socially impact your community, and promote social change?
uh, at a very young age, and this is because maybe because of the way I was raised,
Yeah.
uh, but I had such a huge love for this country, and a huge attachment and grounding, and I always felt that I wanted to do something that has a purpose, and for this purpose to be connected to this land. And this explains my interest in reading about the history of this country, enjoying the food of this country, the nature of this country, the different societies and vibes and cultures, subcultures that we have in the country. Um, it was out of passion and love to this place. And I felt that I knew that there's, of course, challenging of staying here, and maybe a lifestyle
Yeah.
could be easier somewhere else. Uh, but for me, the choice was made. I didn't want to live the life that is the most comfortable life possible. I wanted to live a life that can maximize my purpose, uh, where I can feel that I think everybody suffers in their life. I felt that I wanted to suffer for a good reason. I
Yeah.
wanted, when I'm suffering, I want to see, okay, why am I doing this? And I would like to have a good answer. And I felt doing something for the country uh, would provide me with this answer. No matter how tough things get, uh, my answers will be there, and my purpose will be clear. Um so, yeah.
What's your favorite way to spend time exploring and touring all of Lebanon's different areas that are very diverse and rich in the cultural heritage?
So there's so much in this country, and even if you come as a tourist and you spend like 2 weeks, you would see what uh, what the country, the accessible parts of the country, and the public venues of the country. It gets way more interesting when you go to more isolated regions, when you get into people's houses, when you taste their scope of traditional food. And tabbouleh, for example, is made in like 18 different ways. اللي بحط بقلبها برغل، اللي بحط بقلبها رمان، اللي ما ب... انه it's الكبة like more than 20 different ways. The way we do our architecture, go to areas like Elmina بطرابلس, and to areas like Mina Tsaida. They look nothing alike. Those are two coastal areas in the same country. That you can cross from one area to another in less than an hour in a car. And yet, 2 hours. طرابلس صيدا بدها ساعتين هلا بالعجلة. And they look so different from each other. And I can give like 80 examples of areas that are so close to each other, yet they look so different from in terms of architecture, how people behave over there, the type of food they have, the commercial activities, the level of wealth, the level of education. There's just so much to see, and it's so interesting everywhere. And when you start exploring those areas, you start getting into people's houses, you start embedding yourself in those cultures. Those are the activities that I enjoy the most, and I try to do them as much as possible on the available Saturdays and Sundays. Your connection and your love to this country becomes more and more becomes more and more. And when you read history and you embed yourself in those cultures, you start to understand, oh, okay, that's why Lebanon is the way it is. Uh, this explains the different countries we have in this country, the different cultures we have in this country, the different perceptions about each other we have within this country. And there's a lot of contributing factors. History played a massive role. Some of the, as the country today was occupied for 400 years under different regimes. During the Ottomans, the way Beirut and Tripoli and Saida were treated was significantly different from the way Mount Lebanon was treated and the policies of Mount Lebanon. The schools that people got their education in, for example, the مقاصد schools in Beirut, are very different from the French الإرساليات الفرنسية اللي اجت على جبل لبنان. So the type of education that those people received is just very different. The type of commercial activities, when Mount Lebanon boomed because of the silk trade, Beirut boomed because of the port and the banking activity. So just the type of economy, even within this very small country, has been always very different. Some cultures, such as Matan Kasserwain Beirut, they were always in contact with people from abroad, especially from the 1920s moving forward. This wasn't the case to a lot of areas in the south of Lebanon, and in Beqa, and in Baalbek, and in Hermel. So also this plays a role in how the country is. And this complexity of Lebanon and undressing those layers of complexity is the thing that I like to do the most.
That fascinates you. And how has this passion influenced really your perspective on wanting to focus on sustainability and environmental conservation, whether it's on a society level or also an environment level?
Within all of those places that I visited, and no matter how many people I speak with, and no matter how very, very significantly different their perceptions are,
Yeah.
everyone basically wants the same thing: a good living, good standard of living, good schools for their kids, good health insurance, a roof above their heads, ease of life, addressing the social and environmental problems that we have and that they suffer from. So I felt that we live different lives, but we face the same problems. Our perception to those problems are very different, and the solutions we propose are different. But yet the problems by themselves are the same. And many of those problems can have the same solution all across the country. What we try to build in FabricAID is exactly that. We are trying to build a solution that works بالأشرفية, that works بتنورين, that works بعين سحلطة, that works in all of those areas. And elements of it, it works in all of those different areas because it feeds from each other. نحن the premises of the work that FabricAID does هو بدل ما نجمع طيب من لندن ونوزعها على ناس محتاجة بالوزاعي. No, I don't need to do that. أنا مجمع بفردة that has the capacity وبوزع بالوزاعي. I collect in أشرفية وبوزع بالنبعة. I collect بضم الفرز in Tripoli and I distribute بعكار. So it's understanding the dynamical differences between the country is what allowed us to really build a solution that is perfect for everyone, for this country and for everyone within it.
And you mentioned those dynamic differences between different areas, between different region of the country, whether it's topography, whether it's society, the influences that have been over the past. What do you think is the secret, the magic that is able to, I wouldn't say perfectly unite, but at least unite all of those I wouldn't say groups, but areas into one country, into one identity?
Genuinely and honestly, the reason this country is united is because of lack of options. You cannot but be united. You cannot but live with each other. يعني ما بتزبط. No area in Lebanon
can live without the other.
Can live without the other. Okay, you have Ba'a area. A lot of agriculture. Great. How can I export it without the ports of Beirut and Tripoli? You have the south. So much water. But a lot of ingredients and a lot of certain topographies are not there. Your ability to build big ports, ability to build an airport, of building large cities just doesn't exist. Um, I would go also a step further in that. It's not that we cannot survive without being united. We cannot also survive without the uh, historic and geographic extent of the country and the region. Also, Lebanon, without interacting with its neighbors, with Syria, with Jordan, with the Levant in general, is just very complicated. We are not isolated, and we cannot afford to be isolated. It's such a small country that has a lot, but still lacks a lot of things, and every area lacks much more than that. So the reason those historic differences, religious differences, topographic differences of the country didn't divide us completely and separated the country is simply because the separation doesn't work, and people try to do that. It just doesn't work. Economically it doesn't work. Commercially it doesn't work. So نحن مجبورين ببعض, and this is what I hope more and more people understand. مجبور غصب عنك, if you like it or you don't like it, to coexist with everyone within this country. And you cannot exist without them. يعني your whatever viability commercially you have doesn't really work without all that areas of Lebanon. If Lebanon could have been smaller, they would have made it smaller. From the type of the
all the mandates
from the French mandate. There was several plans to make Lebanon without بقاع. كان فيها plan. كان في making Lebanon without Trablus. This was a legit plan that was mentioned, and they tried to pass it. It just doesn't work commercially. ما بيصمد البلد. And I think true prosperity happens مش بس when everyone in Lebanon realizes that the people of Levant realize that. I don't think Jordan, I don't think Syria, I don't think Palestine, I don't think Lebanon will ever see proper prosperity without مش انه to become ضروري one country, لا, but without bridging the economic gaps between each other. We need to have better cooperation between each other because our countries make sense to complement each other. Europe became much more richer when it complemented each other instead of competing or isolating themselves. Similar solution needs to happen within Lebanon and within the region.
When you mentioned the region, you mentioned the Levant specifically, and I think topographically, the Levant, it varies and it's very different from the Arab Peninsula, essentially.
Sure.
Would you distinguish them, just looking through history, looking through the influences of those regions, the fact that a lot of people here might identify as part of the Arab people, but others may identify more as a Levantine people? What lacks within that Levantine region in terms of whole unity, not just individualism?
So topography is a major reason. If you want to go to Egypt, you need to cross the Sinai Desert. So في literally a huge, massive barrier between you and Egypt. And this is what explains the cultural differences between the people in the Levant and people in Egypt. There's مساحة في صحراء كاملة that you need to pass. If you want to go to Saudi, there's even a much bigger desert. If you want to go to Turkey, في الأطلس Mountains. مش الأطلس sorry, في جبال اللي بتفصلنا نسيت شو الاسم. So while between صيدا حيفا شو between بيروت دمشق انه شو اللي بيمنعك ظهر البيدر ولا اسهل بساعتين. It takes you less time to go بيروت دمشق than it takes you time to go from صور طرابلس. انه nature wise, topography wise, I think this is why simply ما في دبكة بمصر بس في دبكة بسوريا، في دبكة بلبنان، في دبكة بفلسطين، في دبكة بالأردن. ما في حمص بمصر، في حمص بهالأربع بلدان. ما في الميجانا، كل القصص اللي كتير بيعبروا عنها. هلا we do them differently. دبكة بعلبك بيعملوها غير ما بيعملوها بصيدا، غير ما بيعملوها بغير مناطق. We do it differently بس we have different taste. التوب بكل المنطقة عنية، بس التوب الأردني غير التوب اللبناني غير الهيدا. بس we still have give or take a very similar culture. ليش we had a very similar culture? We had topography is one, history is another. and commercially we always needed to trade so much with each other. أول رحلات للميدل إيست لوين كانت؟ أول ترين تركب من وين وين؟ أكبر طرق عنا إياه تركب بين وين وين؟ العيال اللبنانية الأساسية اليوم نعرفها. في عائلة فيها تجي تقول لك أنا 100% I'm 100% from بيروت أو 100 كله مثلا بيت عودي إنه one of the most well-known families أصلك إنه from Palestine. بيت شلهوب أصلك from Syria. So it's this if you go to Jordan today بتلاقي بيت حداد، بتلاقي بيهم بلبنان، بتلاقيهم بسوريا، بتلاقيهم ببالستان. Just this area has always been into each other and integrated. And we need to be smart about the integration, but proper integration is a potential way for us to achieve prosperity. Also in Lebanon, proper integration is the only way where we have stability and prosperity.
From small to big and big to small. And like you said, I think it's culturally, historically, environmentally very rich region that offers so much. Just at least from like a weather perspective, we have the 4 seasons, we have the mountains, we have the agricultural lands, we have the seaside. We're able to fish from our own sea, and it's just everything you need to grow, everything you need to sell, to trade, to really make a country like kind of almost self-sufficient if you think about it. And obviously there's everyone's own personal grudges and divides and the history that comes into it and the borders that have been drawn to separate and the people that have, you know, settled and made it something different than what it's supposed to be. All of this creates those lacks and those friction points and tensions in the region, and you feel like everyone needs a piece of the pie. Can you speak a bit more about how can we overcome those things that we lack because of all this potential that we do have?
Honestly, the most obvious solution is a very physical solution, to physically build roads. I enjoy a lot 2 areas of Lebanon, Sir Dani and Jerd al-Hermel. People in Hermel and in Sir Dani, if you look at the map, you're like, oh, okay, this area is so close to this area. It's literally بين سير وجرد الهرمل ما في شيء. It's the there's no other villages, there's no other areas. People in those areas, they don't know each other, they don't talk to each other, they don't. It's a different sects, different, completely different culture, different environment. ليش؟ إنه you have this huge mountain قاعد بين هالمنطقتين for till today 8 months of the year مسكر بموارد الثلج. So people don't have an opportunity to go from each other. في ناس اليوم إذا بتروح من الهرمل على طرابلس they go through دهر البيضاء. إنه it's we need to physically be connected more to each other. يعني هيدي one very simple solution. And activating proper public transportation, the ease for us to go from one area to another is extremely important. نص التنشنز بتروح when you see other people and you're like, okay, they are different, but they are كمان very similar. And when you start understanding, okay, ليه بيتصرفوا هيك؟ لأنه when you see something that you don't understand, you start building your own reasoning behind it. إنه إيه هن بيعملوا هيك لأنهم هيك. ما في حدا لأنه هيك. في a good reason ليه صار عم يتصرف بهالطريقة. Your role is to figure out ليه بيتصرفوا هيك. There's nothing is illogical. Everybody does things that make sense for them. If it doesn't make sense for you, then simply you don't have enough knowledge. And we don't have enough knowledge is because of those predominantly physical barriers. So definitely building more of those roads, activating public transportation, ensuring that people see each other is extremely important. And having less and less of those there's some universities, some schools, and some companies in this country that unfortunately have people from one color. So if you were born in an area of a certain color, شو ما كان هالcolor, and you went to a school that had the same color, and a university that had the same color, and then a type of work that only recruits people like you, what are the chances you are an advocate of open-mindedness and peace and inclusivity?
Interesting.
Very little. Very little. We need institutions that are more like is like AUB, schools that where people from different areas, possibly from different social backgrounds, can come to. Till today, you go to schools, 97% of the students of the school are coming from the same sect of the same religion. طب يا أخي طب ما لا ما هيدا it doesn't really help. It doesn't it's not a way to build inclusivity and to build تجانس, a homogeneous country.
Yeah, familiarity breeds content. Yeah.
True.
What advice would you give to younger entrepreneurs or students, people that are just starting, who are passionate about really staying and contributing and see the value and the potential in this country, and how to navigate all those challenges and aspects of running a business, but at the same time speaking to running a social entrepreneurial venture, the benefits of deciding to embed this social aspect for impact into your business as well, seeing that we're in a country that needs the community to be more involved in solving its biggest problems and challenges, hopefully to see prosperity in the future.
So I would start with the positives, and there are positives.
Yeah.
Lebanon is a country that faces tremendous difficulties. There's a lot of problems, and we have a public sector that cannot solve the vast majority of those problems. It's just they cannot solve it. They contribute to those problems. We, people living in this country, are suffering from those problems, and we want solutions. And we're willing to pay for those solutions. So with every problem that can demotivate people, it's also an opportunity to create a business, an opportunity to create a solution, to create commercial viable solutions. So there's so much to be done in Lebanon, literally. في كتير opportunities بكل منطقة بكل محل. There's opportunities at the size of the country. There's things that you can start in Lebanon and do and then expand to outside of the country. There's no lack of opportunities in this country. And things, ما بدي أقول opportunities, things to do. هلا and this path of doing things that need to be done is a path of so much fulfillment and purpose. But I fear so much only showing that image. Yes, there's a lot of things that can be done in Lebanon. Yes, it's a very fulfilling life to live, but it's not an easy life, and it's not for everyone. And I wouldn't encourage it for everyone. It is very tough. It is very challenging, and the chances for you to fail are high. The country is not a ground for doesn't make it easy. You are in a market that doesn't have credit. طب إنه what business around the world develops without credit? بدك تدين لتكبر. How كيف فيك تدين لتكبر? Today, if you want to fundraise, إذا بدك تتمول ما بدك تدين, بدك تتمول. شو chances إنك تجيب تمويل when everything is happening the way it's happening? When there's so much, إذا ما بيكون في threat of war مثل today, بيكون في threat of policy. نحن العالم اللي بتعمل policy جاي من زحل.
Capital also control.
Capital controls. طلع من يومين قانون. There's an entire industry in Lebanon that recycles plastic, and that is built on. أنا بجمع plastic. There's 4 factories that recycle it in Lebanon, and everything else I would export it outside of the country. I know 12 companies that work in that field. طلع قرار we don't no longer export plastic in the country. لحظة يا أخي ما هيك بيعملوا. You no longer export plastic. Those businesses, this sub-industry تنهار. رجعوا راحوا حكوا مع الدولة, و after a month and a half of liaising وهيدا قدروا يزبطوا يوصلوا ل a potential solution in the midway. بيطلع لك هيك policies, مين طلع فيها, كيف صارت, كيف قرار وزير, خلص طلع قرار وزير. So this is not a proper way to build an industry. So there's this threat other than the security, other than the كل هالأمور هاي. بس yes, it's tough. Yes, there's no banking, there's no credit, كل هالأمور هاي. But in addition to those 2 things that I started with, what's so special about Lebanon, and this is honestly and genuinely what made FabricAID and what allowed me personally to become successful. You have a lot of people in Lebanon and much more people outside of Lebanon who are eager to contribute, who are eager to give back. هيدا البلد في كتير ناس بيحبوه, كل حدا بيحبه بطريقة مختلفة, بس genuinely محظوظ هالبلد بكمية الناس اللي بتحبه. أكيد حب بيختلف من محل من طريقة لطريقة and how people they feel they contribute to their country. Nonetheless, you have 500,000 in 600,000 بالإمارات, more than 100,000 in Qatar, 400,000 in Saudi, 500,000 in Paris. Those people have built things, they have built knowledge, have built sometimes wealth, and they are willing to contribute back. And we've received so much support from them. So for an entrepreneur in Lebanon, you have something that other entrepreneurs anyway don't have, at least at this scale, is eagerness for people to help you if you are worth helping.
Yeah.
And you can build on that support. This is manjam dahab that we have tapped into, and everyone who succeeded in Lebanon, especially in the last 10 years, which were very turbulent, tapped into. You cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. مين ما كنت. You need to tap into شو اسمه, the wealth that we have in this country, the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of experience.
Not just capital.
Not just of capital, for sure.
And how, in your experience, what are some ways to reach those people? What are some organizations that help bridge those gaps and build those bridges and foster the networks too?
Takreem is definitely one of those organizations. Life, Al-Fanar. I'm really focusing on entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs. Takreem, Life, Al-Fanar, Beritek, عم ننسى, COS. There's a Bloom, what was used to be known as Alt City, Smart Iza, there was a center. So there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of incubators and accelerators. Many of them are quite legit, not all, but many are legit. And they have the capacity to bridge the gap you have. As an entrepreneur, it's extremely important to participate in whatever remained of the Lebanese ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem, competitions, incubators, accelerators, support organizations. لأنه they will give you this awareness and they will give you the connections to this type of talent. لأنه أنا, if I want to support enterprises, how can I support them? If I'm living today in Paris, if I'm living today in Dubai, if I want to give back to startups, to social enterprises, the way I can give back is through connecting to some of those organizations that I mentioned, to the Al-Fanars of the world. So those organizations, they do have a big database and they do have a field of support. You as an entrepreneur need to tap into it, and the best way to do it is يا أما through those organizations أو مثل ما بنقول بالعامي بلا أحم بلا دستور, LinkedIn. You see those people, you send a message, many people won't respond, but many will. So the step one is to put yourself out there, so through those incubators and accelerators. Step number two is to take the effort. If you know that this person from this company, from this family can support, reach out. It can work. Third, there's no better way to reach more connections than connections. So how do you retain your connections? A lot of the support that you would receive is from people who just want to do good, to support. But I don't think there is anything that is not inertly selfish. Everything we do has an individualistic reason. Sometimes it's a simple reason we want to feel good. So make people who support you feel good through gratitude, through publicly acknowledging their support. And when the people who supported you are happy, they will introduce you to other people who can support you. And people who saw that you, the way you reacted to support, they will be inspired to support you. كمان هني by themselves لما بيشوفك عم تشكر غيره بقول لك maybe I can get
forward always.
We can get part of that. So this is definitely this is one major part. Two is, even with those who want to support you, don't look for any solution that maximizes your win only. Look for any solution that is genuine win-win. If you have this ideology of maximizing your families win, your companies win, your own personal wins, you might succeed faster, for sure. But there will become حيجي a limit, a cap to your success. And on the long run, I don't think this is the healthy way to scale and to succeed. ترجع تتاكل. The best way to do it is to have this بده يسكر مخك on the idea of building a win-win partnership. Anybody who I want to work with, I need to build this partnership that is beneficial for them and for me. If you go in a partnership and you only feel it's beneficial for you, or the balance of win is not really logical, don't do it. Don't pitch it.
Okay.
Pitch the things that work for both.
How to add value
Me.
to both. And, you know, in encouraging more young entrepreneurs to really start social enterprises and take that leap of faith through all the challenges, because the challenges are everywhere and it's just about picking your battles at this point. How would you envision the role of those social enterprises in solving local challenges, but also on a global level, if there's more of them? How do they tend to replace the role of public entities within Lebanon or the region?
Not only in Lebanon, ومش حتى in our small region of Levant, بس كبير. When you go further into the MENA region, there's a lot of massive problems, similar to the problems that we are facing. What's so interesting in a social enterprise, if I want to create this mic, I'm a startup and I work on creating mics or cameras. إذا أنا entrepreneur بلبنان وفي حدا مثلي entrepreneur in Silicon Valley or in Taiwan or in Hong Kong or in London or in any of those entrepreneurial hubs, even if I'm smarter, even if I'm more hardworking, the chances that they would succeed is higher. Kareem and Uber started at the same time. The founders of Kareem are ex-consultants in McKinsey, the smartest people in the Arab world. And they didn't start in Beirut, they started in Dubai, a more advanced place. And yet what happened? Uber bought Kareem. مش كريم owned Uber. ليه؟ لأنه those في certain hubs where your ability to scale and to grow and the market is just bigger. So إذا اثنين عم يشتغلوا على نفس problem at the same time, they will succeed faster. هلا what's interesting in social enterprises, you are not competing with a solution that is being developed in Silicon Valley. Nobody is trying to do what FabricAID is doing in Lebanon, be any of those hubs. So you are creating solutions in places that are, there's no external competition. They don't have those problems in Europe. They don't have those problems in the US. So you can create solutions where you become the acquirer. You become the person who acquires companies in Egypt, in Morocco, in Pakistan, in Sao Paulo. You have this capacity as a social enterprise. I believe a tech startup in the Arab world, كبيرة, is to be acquired by a tech startup in Europe or in the US. And that's reality, not a single exception. Not a single exception. A social enterprise, كبيرة, it will become the acquirer. It will become the big fish in the market. So this is motivating. The scale of it is personally motivating for me. Two is we have not built today solutions or business models that work perfectly to 1/3 of our people. In Lebanon, we have 6 million, إلنا في 2.5 million people who can't afford first-hand clothing. كل الريتيل knowledge.
Almost half of the population.
Almost half.
Yeah.
كل الريتيل knowledge, كل التياب, كل الفاشن ديزاينرز, كل الباترن ميكرز, كل هالتيلرز الموجودين بالبلد. They cater لها 3.5 million people who can afford. And nobody, ما فيها knowledge, ما فيها investment that caters to her 2.5 million. Yes, her 2.5 million can afford less, way less. But there are 2.5 freaking million. In the Arab world, it's 80 million. 80 out of 350.
So the unit economics.
So it's huge.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity as social entrepreneurs to address needs and to employ technologies on target audiences that have been always neglected.
Yeah, that's true, because within the business world, when you speak of people that do business for the profit bottom line, a lot of the target audience they tend to look for tends to be that first half of the population. But we forget the numbers game, and there's equal almost, if not less or a bit more on the other end as well. And they deserve to be treated as a target audience with their own needs, with their own wants, with their own ways to shop and ways to buy food and ways to get healthcare treatment, etc.
And people would, I've had those discussions. People will be like, انه انت عم تيجي تقول لي انه the 80 million underprivileged communities are basically a target audience. This is a very commercial term. ايه a target audience من هون لبكره؟ ليش؟ we need to build commercial solutions for them. لأنه if it's charity solutions it will never cater to 80 million people. منشان هيك في 80 مليون عربي اليوم can't afford clothes. لأنه قد إيه بدها تكون كبيرة هالcharity if it's only funded. If it's only funded قد إيه بدها تجمع donations. So if we really are serious about solving those issues, we need to solve them in sustainable ways. So we need to think sustainably. We need to think commercially, while what we are thinking about is purely social and environmental. So this mentality and this shift in mindset is extremely important. وهلا ما عم بحكي انه صارت خلص a wave و this is how everyone is thinking, بس it's definitely much more people are thinking this way today compared to when we started ب 2017 2018. مش بس من ورانا كل القصص that changed.
What are your future plans for FabricAID, and any future projects you're envisioning or initiative that you would like to achieve in the future?
So there is a big airline. It's one of the biggest airlines in the regions. We will be doing the biggest upcycling project in the world with them. In Lebanon, بلبنان إيدين لبنانية. The airline is not Lebanese, obviously.
You cannot mention yet.
We cannot mention yet. We will be basically upcycling hundreds of thousands of uniforms and attire they have. It will be the biggest, the biggest upcycling project in the world. So this is something that we are very excited about, and that it will create so many jobs in Lebanon. Another thing that we are very excited about is our expansion to Egypt in partnership with the Egyptian Clothing Bank. This is a partnership that we are very excited about, very happy about, and it's very rare in the region to find social enterprises, investors, and NGOs working together from different countries. And investors are from the Gulf. The social enterprise is from Lebanon. The charity is in Egypt to develop a solution that really can solve the problem for 20 million Egyptians. So هيدي combinations, public sector, private sector, social enterprise, combining their efforts to solve social and environmental needs in a market as big as Egypt, is a project I'm super excited about.
I wish you the best of luck with that. I would love to end with a few rapid round questions that you can answer with a word or a sentence. Can you share a memorable experience that made you proud to be Lebanese?
صراحة منتخب لبنان باسكت يعني دايما ببيض الوجه. I'm a big basketball fan, فكل ما رياضي حكمة basketball رياضي for sure. على الآخر يعني. بس إنه whenever any basketball team wins anything برات لبنان، أنا هلا we have the Asian Championship، إنه خلص you feel إنه إيه لبناني وفيني وبترفع بتتحمس كتير. So this is where like societies that lose a lot weirdly degrade. You need to win as a society. We need to win together. بدك some بتقول لك إنه إيه ماتش باسكت، إيه ماتش باسكت، إنه إيه بطولة. It's the idea of feeling إنه كلنا مع بعضنا قدرنا نربح شيء. And if you just sit for a long period of time عم تحس حالك عم تخسر والعالم عم تقطع عنك وما في إنجازات، أي نوع إنجازات، just هيك sad, and it degrades the society.
Yeah. What is your favorite way to explore Lebanon's nature?
دور سيارة 4x4 and just go there without a plan. يعني بتسمع مثلا باسم ضيعة غريبة إنه خلص اليوم رايحين على هالضيعة، شو بدنا نعمل؟ بنشوف بالضيعة نبلش تسأل ليك إنه في مطعم لذيذ هون إذا. and it's weird how many villages you can go and you'll be like في حدا مثلا هون بالضيعة أكله طيب فينا ناكل عنده، ما ضروري يكون مطعم وأكيد ندفع وهيدا. And you would realize okay, you will find a lot of answers. and لا ما بنقبل بتاكل عنا وهيدا
hosted by the people.
You will find a lot of that. بس كمان of course you shouldn't accept and you should actually, but you will find a lot of this will be a great opportunity to go into people's houses and to learn about how they live and learn about how they cook. Just recently تعلمت على أكلة شو اسمه آه ب آه، تنورين الفوقة. أكلي كلها توم، ولأن المنطقة هنيك بتزرع توم فبتاكليها وبتطلع هيك إنه هيدا الأكلة طلع بس تنورين وهالثلاث أربع مناطق بيعرفوا فيها. and you're like أوكي
very
الأكل
niche.
في يكون هالقد طيب. وهيدا إنه you just discover things.
Yeah.
إنه أنا وصلت لمحل I'm a big foodie, I love food, I love Lebanese food so much. Till today I still discover new plates and new cuisines, new ways of doing things, and it's evolving. This is what's so interesting. And حتى our handcrafts are evolving. Some of the upcycling techniques we have that we are doing to cater for this airline, تعلمتهم بعرسال.
Wow.
Um,
Local knowledge.
we so it's just like the way you weave things, the way you shred things. في an organization يعني endeavor بعرسال family endeavor بياخد they cut the sheep hair وبيعملوا منهم منتجات. From them we learn things that we were able to use and to sell it to a freaking airline. So just take a great knowledge to have.
Localized
experiences.
Well preserved. If you could have dinner with any historical figure from the Arab world, who would it be and why?
From the Arab world?
Or the region. If it helps, we could also broaden it and say worldwide.
I would stick to the region. There's a lot of people that I would love to meet to know if they were genuine and decent or not. يعني I would love to like the founding fathers. I would love to meet لأنه they have a very different reputation. I would love to see مثلا who is really رياض الصلح. Is he a decent person ولا لا he's not. بشار الخوري they say he's a founding father and they say he was really corrupt at the time. So I would love to see شو وضعك أنت كيف كنت عن جد حقيقة. What's your also philosophers. I would like to see أنطون سعادي to see كيف شو وضع أنت كيف أنت فعلا يعني. I would love to Sharif Hussein, all those people that had like just a massive impact on the region. Abdullah الأول إنه أنتوا شو did you actually sell the land ولا لا you had a plan, you had an ideology, the ideology that you claimed إنه قديش you were committed to it. Such people I would love to meet.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? It could be also maybe your favorite quote in Arabic.
It's a well-known quote, but it's quite important in business, and we've suffered from that. And if I say it, a lot of our board members are going to laugh. في مثل بيقول ما تقول فول غير ما يصير بالمكيول.
Okay. Yeah.
As entrepreneurs and in business, we get excited. I'm personally a very ambitious person, a positive person, so I see positive in the word. So مثلا بيصير شيء قبل ما يركب 100% بكون تحمست ومثلا a potential investment, a potential revenue stream that is getting. So منبلش منكبر ومنظبط ومنوسع knowing إنه خلص this investment is coming, this potential is coming. And then this potential doesn't come. And becomes a harder challenge to fix the situation. So هيدي ما تقول فول قبل ما يصير بالمكيول. Once it's there you do something وهقد بصوتك مد اجريك. بس دايما حاول كبر بصوتك. بس انه don't take we don't have nets of safety in this country. So إذا وقعت بتوقع وبتتعور. So you need to be very cautious of it. We've suffered from that for sure.
And lastly, in a few words, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs based on your experiences?
Genuinely and honestly, don't do it alone.
Okay.
يعني as an entrepreneur, the most important thing, if you have an idea, look for a partner. أول شيء إنه نطلع من فكرة family businesses وأنا وخيي وابن عمي بنخلق شركة. لا, look for a partner who comes from a different background, different experience. ما عم أقول لك إنه different background ضروري يكون أنت من الشمال هو مش بس إنه different expertise. Look for a partner and make sure your team is very involved and very much sold in the vision. Say yes to people who know less but have fully your principles and your vision, أحسن بكتير من to get somebody who is more competent قبضاي بيشتغل أكتر بس who doesn't agree with you on where you want things to go.
The vision.
رضا باللي with alignment is better than skill.
Yeah.
Skill can be built, alignment cannot be built. يا أما people are aligned with you يا أما they are not aligned.
Yeah.
Create a team that is fully aligned عنده قلب واحد. And this will mean إنه you won't get the skills that you need لأنه بدك تختار شيء بالحياة ما في you won't get everything.
Yeah.
But this is a better way to build it.
And lastly, how can our audience follow your work or stay updated on different FabricAID initiatives, donate if they're interested to donate? And
So FabricAID social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, هولي كلهم هلا تيك توك كمان. So definitely on our social media, we have our phone number is available online, our WhatsApp number, our emails. So please feel free to reach out. We have our stores. We have 16 stores within the country, so people can visit and meet directly some of our team members. And personally, I have my LinkedIn. يعني anybody who's interested, I would love to.
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us on the podcast. Thank you so much, Omar, for being with us on Tech on the Pod today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
شكرا كتير. Thank you for this opportunity.